Welcome. I'm John Hool. I'll be your host today for another episode of Main Street Live. Hey, have you ever walked in a room and you see someone there and everyone's kind of gravitating towards them? That person usually tells really good stories. Greets you always by name and often gives you bear hugs, even in the era of COVID. Well, maybe he didn't give as many bear hugs then. But there's a reason people gravitate to this person. It's pretty much the way they conduct themselves. But what are their backgrounds? What are their stories? How did they come up? How did they get to that position where everyone wants to be like BK? And I know he's laughing right now, and you now get to meet him. So that was quite an introduction. So we're going to learn a little bit about Brendan Kane from Peregrine Property Management, and really interested in how he came out. Now, I know that was a bit of a setup. You probably weren't prepared to hear that, and I did not share my opening with him. But that's true, Brendan. I found that with you, and that's why I wanted you to be a guest. Like, really, you're really good with people, and people gravitate to you, and you're a good storyteller. You know who also was a great storyteller? Abe Lincoln. So are you the Abe? So my first question is, are you the Abraham Lincoln of our times?
Of our times, Abraham Lincoln, the great civil rights activist, and yes, not quite the great Abe Lincoln of real estate in Rhode Island. But to your point, it's been years of, I would say, groomed behaviors that have got me to the place where I am today, and certainly a giant portion of genetic support from my mom and dad relative to how they kind of purport themselves. And
so I want to ask you about that.
Please.
So in my promotion of this lively experiment, I mentioned that you would have thought that your family came down with Roger Williams in 1636. And that was my way of saying that if I didn't know you, I would think that you're part of the Rhode Island establishment.
Sure.
And that's what I meant by that.
Sure.
And again, it's the way, because you seem very successful. You exude. I mean, look at you. Look at this, right? You know. But tell me about your mom and dad and how you came up. I think it would be important for people to hear that.
It's a great question. So there's certain little illusions out there relative to me, my brother, the family, I guess. But really humble beginnings. Grew up in a raised ranch that my dad still lives in Potawatomi, Rhode Island, that he bought in 1966, 67. Dad was an elementary school principal for 35 years in Providence, Rhode Island. Mom stayed at home until my brother and I were, I think Colin was 10 and I was 8. And then kind of serendipitously, uneducated college-wise, my mom ran for state representative in 1975 for 76th session and won as a Republican with the support of John Chafee, or Senator John Chafee. And she spent 10 years in the House of State Representatives, which kind of take a page out of her book relative to personalities and remembering names and being very thoughtful and meaningful when you ask a question and you hear a response. And then, so that's the story. We kind of, follow my brother, Naval Academy, Georgetown, Harvard MBA, and me with my scrappy degree from URI.
And what was your degree in?
Yeah, it's a great question, John. That sounds loaded, but yes, it was early childhood development with a minor in African American studies.
So now, did you want to be a teacher? What were you thinking about? What was the...
Great next question. So the dad wanted me to be a teacher because I was a horrendous student. He said, you get summer jobs.
So you thought you could maybe teach more kids?
Yeah, I think so, yeah, to continue the trends. Yeah, I never thought about it that way. I think my dad was thinking pension, bartend in the summer, you'll be fine, ultimately have a life for yourself. I graduated with that degree and came back and worked at Ocean Tides, working with behavioral disturbed kids, worked at Hasbro Hospital as a child life specialist, and decided, my lifestyle needs didn't necessarily mirror the pay or compensation from the kind of social work type activities. And then my buddy moved to California, and Coronado, he says, I'm going out. Do you want to come out? And the same day he asked me to go, I got offered a teaching job without credentials. And Irish fight ensues relative to Dad knowing I got the teaching job and me telling him I'm not going to take the teaching job. And then 3 days later, I was in a car to California.
So I know you end up at Enterprise.
Yes, sir.
So how did you get to Enterprise from California?
Yeah, so I drove my Carmen Ghia back from California alone, top down. I think I had a box of cigars and Diet Cokes. And
you were smoking cigars back then?
Even then, yeah.
Wow.
I was way ahead of my time. and landed home, having spent 2 years in Coronado. And my dad says, what are you going to do now? And I was hoping prodigal son type treatment. And I got kind of in the front door, what are you doing? And really undefined skill set relative. Go ahead, please.
And where was Colin at this time?
So Colin was...
Colin's his brother.
Colin is my brother. Colin was he's still in the Navy. He had 5-year obligation at the Naval Academy, so he went through Gulf War I and II. He had finished his master's at Georgetown at this time while at Naval Academy.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, it's impressive. So he was probably in the Gulf or thereabouts, or down in Norfolk.
All right, so the other kid comes back from Coronado.
Yep, thinking
right,
I'm it.
Right.
My sister's, how old would she be? So she was at Providence College at the time. I think a sophomore, junior, so she wasn't home. I came home, again, thinking a moment of, roll the carpets out and kill the fatted calf story. I got, what are you going to do? You don't have any skills. I worked bartending and floor managing restaurants and in California. Again, I'm going through the classifieds at the time, right? No Indeed or Monster. An Enterprise Rental Car had just moved into Rhode Island, hadn't even opened their first branch yet. And I, jump in with my Joseph A. Bank suit and leather-soled shoes, and I get the job.
So do you think it's those interpersonal skills is how you got that job?
Yeah, so Enterprise is, thank you. Enterprise hires a certain or a particular type of person, lower to middle class, undefined, poli-sci, social, kind of BA students who really they're not going to Wall Street. They're not.
That sounds like me, but would I have made a height requirement?
There is a height requirement for some of the cars are large, John. Okay. But I would say it was one of those things that it's about personality. It's about, but it's like a Merrill Lynch program. Mm-hmm. It's like any of the large firms. You come in, they bring a class of 15 in, and 10 make it a year, 5 make it 2, and 1 makes it farther. And so they were hiring, even at the time, 30 or 40,000 people a year, of which from the same background. Again, I was there 9 years, and 9 years later there was probably 3 of me that went through the group that started at the same time.
So how long did you work in Rhode Island at the Enterprise?
Sure. So I moved through quickly because they were opening branches quickly.
Yeah.
So I was in branch 1, which was in Warwick. I assistant manager in East Providence, which was branch 4. I ran my first branch in Dartmouth, which was branch 08. And then that was within 9 months. Became an area manager within a year and a half. And then I spent 6 years in Rhode Island, and then got promoted to run or assistant running Ireland, the country.
So now tell me, when do you meet your bride at this point?
So bride was at URI, 4 years younger.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I think I creeped on her a little bit, oddly. She wasn't aware of that. Then met at Enterprise. She got out of URI.
She worked at Enterprise too. I didn't know that.
She did, which was completely frowned upon. And
again, you've always been a trendsetter.
Really ahead of the curve. Yeah, ahead of the curve. I was dating someone for a long time, and I met Brooke working in Pawtucket. She was one of my employees at Pawtucket, and again, frowned upon. I meet her at an after-hour party. Enterprise was very good about kind of 50-50, spend 50 on your clients and 50% on your employees. So they'd take us to dinners and drinks and events. And
I haven't heard that 50-50 rule.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
It really
is. That something you followed today too?
I would say we're very generous. I'm not sure it's exact split, but it's...
But that's where you learn that. It's interesting.
It's impressive.
What we learn when we first start out in business and how that follows us to where we are today. So you meet Brooke.
Sure.
You're working together, and she comes with you to Ireland?
So we get engaged. So I leave girlfriend, get engaged, take her out. My first date was with my nephew John, who was 18 months at the time. Never called the girl again that I dated for 2 years, and got engaged 4 months later to Brooke. And then a year later, married, daughter 3 months old. I get promoted to Ireland, and the whole three of us.
Whole clan moves to Ireland.
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of moving pieces.
Moved to Ireland with a 3-month-old.
Yes.
All right, so tell me about that. How is Ireland? What did you do in Ireland, and how did it prepare you for today?
Sure, and I would say 2 things. One, the mentor I had in Rhode Island with Enterprise, a guy named Matt Darrow, who ended up being number 3 in the company.
Wow.
Big deal. Certainly helped me navigate the job to Ireland. Brooke can't, when she goes to Ireland, newborn baby, but can't work on my work visa because of the laws in Ireland. And I would say from an entrepreneurial spiritedness, Enterprise Rhode Island was fine because we were cutting edge, we were opening branches, we were hiring people, training people. And Ireland was even, at least there was a brand here recognizable. When we went to Ireland, it was, we didn't know the tax laws, we didn't know how to buy a car, we didn't know, VAT, we didn't know how to rent a building, leases. And that was a completely blank slate.
Now, were you responsible for some of those things?
We created all of it.
Wow.
So we opened our headquarters. We opened our first branch we had 13 when I left 3 years later, and hired every employee, created a policy. So as much as Enterprise is a billion-plus business, I think it might be a $20 billion company now. It was still very, Ireland at the time was pioneering. It was still Wild West relative to understanding those markets. Trying to create a market that didn't exist in Ireland, so we were trying to create that similar replacement market, insurance replacement market, as opposed to jumping right into retail and airport stuff. So it was bootstrap and gritty and bump your head a lot, and Irish people, in those industries don't necessarily pay, so we're chasing money, and all the while kind of creating a culture. We hired 50 people over that 3-year period.
Sounds like you got prepared to be in property management and development. Huh?
It's gritty, bang your head a lot, but it was an incredible, just an exceptional experience. As a young couple, baby, learning a lot from a business perspective, not having had a business one coming out of college. It's you read about P&Ls and budgets and purchasing and leases and all that stuff that regardless of property management or business in general, just you cut your teeth on a lot and learned a lot, which was enlightening in a good way.
So take us through from Ireland to where you are today.
Sure.
Fill in those gaps for me.
Yeah, I'll give you a really quick.
The Cliff Notes.
So Dylan is now born in Ireland.
Okay.
3 years later, he's 3 months, and Hannah is 3, starting to get an Irish accent, which is phenomenal. Decide after Dylan's born that it's time to, kind of starting to predicate our lives around where we want it to be. My next job with Enterprise was going to be deeper into Europe, and that was something that we both kind of decided wasn't for us.
You say deeper into Europe, you go to the continent, you might go to Berlin or something.
Exactly, that's exactly right. So we decided that we're going to make a change and kind of move home and, based on what we knew about ourselves and figure out how to find a job, but know where we wanted to be. So we approached Enterprise with that thought, and they said, "Well, okay, so you're quitting." I said, "Well, if that's what you think I'm saying, then I'm quitting." Immediately regretted that decision, but went back and said, "Listen, I've got offers to work for Hertz," which was really, this is one of the first moments that really validated my skills and kind of what I brought to a table in terms of growing a company and people. Enterprise said, "We don't want you to work for Hertz." I said, "Well, okay, what does that mean?" They flew me to London, and I got they paid for my move back. They took the car I purchased back. They paid, for the housing move. Then they paid me a significant amount of money not to work for Hertz for 2 years. So that came back. It bought my house, or at least put a giant down payment on my house. It gave me 2 years of income stream that I didn't have. So when I came back, I got a job at pharmaceuticals.
So it wasn't for you to stay with Enterprise, just not to work for Hertz.
Correct.
Oh, interesting.
And Hertz was jumping into the same market that we were. So
they value you that much that they didn't want to find work somewhere else, but not for our competitor.
Correct.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think the whole comp over the 2 years was probably $160K. So when you're looking at zero or moving yourself back, no job, no income, the first 4 months of that deal, I got $20,000 up front. I got $6,000 a month for 4 months. I got $3,000 a month for the next 2 years. I got a $40,000 payout at the end. All very.
So you could really kind of take a look and say, all right, what do I want to do next?
It was impressive. And then jumped to pharma. They paid me well. And then Hertz, after 2 years, picked me up to work for Hertz anyway. And then ran a division for them through Michigan, Ohio, up through Maine, selling against Enterprise in the insurance markets.
We know you're based here?
I was based just in Braintree.
Braintree, okay.
But again, a lot of travel. Kids were still young, coaching baseball. My brother had started a development company with a guy named David Sluter from New England Construction. And Dave at the time, this is '05, was looking for a kind of a VP of sales on the commercial side. And I jumped on with the Sluter family, and we took Dave's company with the friends of Greg Post, I'm sure you know, from Bowerman now, but we took that company from 17 million to 55. And then his company, but brought all his kids into the business, and they're fine and lovely. And I figured that some writing on the wall, and I was 41, 42, struggling to make some significant leap for myself in terms of kind of entrepreneurial leap. Had a ton of encouragement from my wife and from my brother saying, just do it, do something, you can sell anything. And
I want to interrupt for
please,
a second
interrupt.
there. Because it occurred to me, obviously, Enterprise valued you so much for your sales that they didn't want you to work for Hertz. Then Hertz hired you when you were available to come compete against them. And
Correct.
then, obviously, the other company, the New England Construction that you went to, hired you for the same reason. So obviously
That's
you can
correct.
sell.
We can
so
sell.
You're good at selling.
We can sell.
So that's established.
Yes.
Right. And it's interesting to me when you're saying that, how good the training must have been, but then how good you were at it.
Yeah, and every company had their own, ABC training.
Sure.
The pharma had 2 weeks of
ABC, for our viewers
Yes.
that don't know that. ABC, go ahead.
always be closing.
All right, thank you.
Emotional EQ stuff.
Yep.
And
So
yeah.
now you make the decision. You've worked for some big companies.
Sure.
You've been on the corporate side where you get the moving allowance, you get the severance, or I'm going to pay you not to work for our competitors.
Correct.
So you don't get that in our entrepreneurship world.
I don't believe so.
But now you're about to make a new leap. So
Sure.
tell us about that leap and what you did.
Yeah, so put myself in a corner. We figured out, having spoken to Jeff Spratt, who's now my partner, was working for my brother, who a year earlier started Peregrine Property Management.
Okay.
I was helping them just as a friend and brother. Hey, this is where and how you can grow this company. So fast forward a year later, the opportunity presented itself where I presented that, hey, we can grow this. There's something here. We can get traction. We know how to do it. I know how to find it. And then no money, Peregrine Group, my brother's company, at the time, this is, again, bad timing, 09, 10, he's like, I can't pay you anything. It's your company. You can do what you want with it, but there's no income stream coming in. So I went out and put myself in a corner again and started talking about it, at the bar and over a cigar and at the club. And I raised $150,000 inside 2.5 weeks.
This was your seed money to launch your new enterprise.
Yeah, and also I had, a house and car and, life, right? So
that's the story that a lot of people don't know, right? That they see you today and look, and
shameless plug for Mark Allen.
yes, I'm actually wearing Mark Allen pants.
There you go.
But they don't see the grind. And then what was that like? Tell people what that was like.
Yeah.
And when you're faced with, I've got to raise this money, or I gotta find another job. I've got kids at home. I've got a wife at home. I got to support them. Talk about that. People don't get
Yeah. There was, to your point, there was no other alternative, right?
Right,
So,
right.
In 160,000 in real time, real money, it doesn't get you very far. So, Jeff and I, he was generating in that 1 year prior $800 a month in revenue from Roscommon's condo, a complex my brother built years earlier.
This is to manage their property.
Yeah,
What are some of those things that you do?
Yeah, so we're full service. We're collecting rents.
Okay.
We're paying bills. We're taking care of vendor management. So we're doing that, and it's fine. And Jeff's still kind of working from
$800 a month.
Yeah, it's fantastic. That wasn't going to get us there. So the first year, we started taking the network I had built from New England Construction and the kind of beyond. And first year revenue growth was, we brought in about 400,000 in that first year from 800.
How'd you do it?
9,600.
Your network, talking to people.
That was it.
Yep.
Literally, it was a bootstrap. People that just trust me on the construction side, banking, brokers, lawyers, all that. I said, listen, we're changing hats. We're going to own it, and they all kind of came with me. So direct referrals, walk in, non-commoditized.
So you're managing property for people.
Now we're managing properties.
So year one, you're in. Okay, so now
And we had no idea what we were doing relative to managing properties. That was all
Well, you hired good people.
From zero.
Or got good people.
Well, at the beginning it was just
collaborated.
Jeff and I, so we had zero.
So you learned real fast.
Yeah, we bumped our heads, hired our first tech, bumped our heads, and the people we had then, lovely, got us to certain points. And, when you look at evolution of client type and sophistication of client, things have to change. So we've evolved. Again, I would say the nimbleness of our abilities have helped us to grow and kind of stay ahead of that sophistication. Please.
I've seen this with entrepreneurs that first step, that's the hardest, I think. Like getting off the ground when you have no money, right? And getting that first client and then that second client. But then maybe 5 years later, it's easier maybe, but it's different because there's new hurdles. Tell me about some of those.
Yeah, so we went through this. So started the company successful. We've got 78, 80 clients, 7 million square feet under management.
It's tough because you're managing them, getting new ones,
Sure.
Managing people. It's a challenge, right?
Yeah, and I've been very fortunate. So Jeff Spratt, my partner, and I have kind of divided and conquered. I would say culturally, me, philanthropically, me, network, me, revenue generation, me. And he's, I would say, kind of COO/partner who does operational F&A.
Manages all the people.
All the people, correct.
Yep, all the clients.
And we've created a model that it's allowed us to scale. So I don't have to answer every phone call at night, and nor does Jeff, if we answer any. We set it up like enterprise, where we've got leadership, trusted leadership, managers under them, assistants under them, and techs that do more independent things that they.
So that goes back to that initial. That was your management training. That was your accelerated MBA or something of how to build a structure and organization, right?
To scale.
To
right?
scale.
Yeah, because otherwise.
That's what enterprise is all about, right?
That's all enterprise is about. And you'll gravitate or you won't, right? Relative to succeed or fail. But that's allowed us to scale. So to your point, we got to a nice spot. We were comfortable. We were having nice things, and everyone's doing fine. We're growing the company. And then how do you expand again? So
why?
You said it.
Why do you expand again?
Yeah, why and how?
Right.
So so when you look at a scalable model from our side is, service industry with contracted work, like the insurance industry, is you sell it for multipliers, right? So the goal is how do you grow a business, whether you stay in or not, that is at some point has a value to someone else, because you're not going to do this forever. So we stepped over the cliff again and charted the path for Worcester. Opened a new LLC again. This year we lost a couple $100,000 in just from losses from starting that business. But believe that very much like here, the second tier markets, there's a $4 or $5 million opportunity. There's another 4.5 million, 7 million square feet of space to manage because it sets up very similarly. We're not competing necessarily against the national players.
Now, you've also expanded beyond just property management yourself, too.
Sure.
So talk a little bit about some of the development you've been involved in, some of the major projects.
Yeah, so the property management and my brother's company, which is the advisory services side, allow us to perform certain things. Due diligence and process on the advisory side, and certainly how to run something on the tail end of that once you own it. So we've done collectively the roll-up middle activities, which are all new and separate LLCs. We've had the luxury and pleasure to buy apartments and to develop waterfront property in Newport, the Hammets Hotel, and all the surrounding yachting center. We've just bought a new hotel in North Adams, Mass. So all these things, we know how to structure them, we know how to put them together, we know what it takes to run them, which allows us to kind of create opportunities and create value on some of these assets. We bring in an equity pool that's allowed us to grow monies beyond our own monies to buy bigger scale things. So that's been, I think the operational companies are fantastic engines. I think the kind of wealth creation kind of sits someplace between.
Interesting. Well, Brendan, I think we've really enjoyed hearing this story from going from URI as an education major,
sure,
all the way to enterprise in Ireland, and then back to the States, and then hearing how you've developed this great company. So I told you that I would give you the opportunity. That I've been asking you, peppering you with these questions, and so now the floor is yours.
Sure.
You can give a monologue. You can say whatever you like, or you can ask me a question. So
Yeah.
the show, I am handing over the show to you for our final 5 minutes.
I thought based on your opening, I was going to come up with something pithy to land on you. But I would say, again, like you, John, and you and I have spent a lot of time together. I think, frankly, just to thank my staff, my partners, the people that have taken risk on us. It's allowed certain freedoms in our lives to have that kind of confidence behind us. It does help stepping off that cliff significantly easier when people are like, you've got it, you can do it.
Got your back. I'm with you. Yep.
And then a foundation of really, people that taught me a lot. Right? That's my mom and my dad, and Matt Dara from Enterprise, and the managers I had there, and all the other places I've touched, even the bad ones. Right, you learn something.
Sometimes even more. Sometimes even better.
Yeah, we're learning every day. And tomorrow's a new day, and we'll have different challenges, and we'll think about them and digest them, and surround ourselves with brighter people, mastermind style, and figure out how to solve them.
Well, and that's how I met Brendan, is through masterminds. And I remember meeting with you, and you eloquently explained the whole thing. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to put you on the spot again.
Sure.
And, do the Andrew Carnegie.
Yeah, Carnegie, yeah.
Carnegie, and that whole idea. So how we met was through a masterminds group here locally in Providence. And so tell us, what is masterminds?
Yeah, so mastermind is obviously, at the time, New York City, big money folks from different industries. People recognizing that they don't have all the answers, and knowing that you don't have to get all the answers. You can surround yourself with people that have the answers, which saves you a lot of steps and a lot of banging your head. And I think for us, it was an incredibly successful 7-8 year run. I think key to those groups is recognizing that you need people that can participate, articulate that participation, and then have same shared visions relative to how and where they want to go, right? So I think sometimes those evolve.
Yeah, and that still continues. And we joke, and you're not shy to have a scotch and a cigar. Maybe you learned that in Ireland, or coming across country. But even when you're doing that, you're around other business people, and you're not talking sports sometimes, maybe, but everyone's talking about business and how they can do better. Do you see that? And you see that today, where people want to get together and they just want to share ideas and talk. What's your impression?
Yeah, I'm like, in those moments, not the lunch and the quick breakfast and the coffee. These relationships are charted over time, and valued time, and conversational time, and people being willing to be vulnerable and share their kids' stories and their wives' stories and their business problem stories. And I think when you kind of break that egg, that's when the connectivity happens, where the relationships get really, really deep, really, really strong, really, really high trust. And I think that's I think some of the delusions that you go to a chamber event or you shake hands and pass a card that, how come he didn't call me? It takes 20 lunches and 20 cards passed and a sad story about someone passing away. And I mean, all those things layered up and create relationships and friendships that, you got to manage them all and keep attention.
I wonder, is that a Northeast New England, Rhode Island thing? Did you see that in Ireland too? But it takes a long time for people to establish trust, to give you over business. And I say this to people: the hardest thing to do is get people to give you money on a regular basis.
That's a fact.
Right?
That's a fact. Yeah, I think it's it's not the. Again, you're not answering an RFP, right? So you're hoping that someone literally gives you money and says, John, we value your services, Brendan, your services, and we trust that you're going to do it to the standard that we want, right? You want to get away from that commoditized stuff, but sadly that does take time. And again, some people are faster to get to that comfort zone than others. And I would say, one of my skills, and not sure where and how, but people gravitate fast. They create friendships quickly with me, and that tend to be sticky and long-lasting on both sides. But it happens, for me, it might not be 12 lunches or 20 lunches. It might be, 2 dinners and a round of golf, right? But again, I think it's how people, again, you have to let people in to have them take something out of you, right? So I think it's the more easy you are with that, or they're at ease with that, I think the faster those relationships come, and the more you can monetize those things. Right.
Well, we're just about out of time.
Super.
Last chance to ask me something if you want, or I think we might have time for a question or two, but we can go over the half hour or two. No one keeps us to it, but we want to
commercial
wrap this up
breaks,
too. There's no commercial breaks. It's just you and I talking for a half hour. But last chance, you want to ask me anything, or I can take maybe one or two questions.
What's your next leap of faith?
What's my next leap of faith? Well, I told you about it earlier. So I'm in the process of rebranding. Quite frankly, JH Communications. It's funny. I'll talk to people. They'll say it's Hool Marketing or it's J&H. That wasn't an old insurance company apparently. And I came up with JH Communications because back at the time, 20 years ago, believe it or not, 20 years ago. What was I going to call? I needed to call myself something. I was 30 years old and I needed a name. Sound familiar? Like AC Productions, stuff like that. You need a name. That's actually our camera guy. He has a freelance business going on. We're like, all right, what do we call ourselves, right? So I was JH Communications. I just went with it for a while, and then it's interesting. I'm at the Chamber event recently, and the guy next to me is Communications Unlimited. You know John Martin?
I do. Yeah.
All right, so he's explaining that he does phone systems and video surveillance and stuff like that, and
Completely.
I'm JH Communications. Like, okay, and then there's Verizon Communications. Right. So communications was supposed to represent at the time public relations, marketing, stuff like that. We have always been more of a PR, strategic marketing, advertising agency, and I don't think communications even does it. And then JH, as you put it, and not that I'm looking to get out of the business anytime soon, but it's more about me now than it is about it's my staff of 9-10 people. They're not JH. So what we are, and I think what's come out of COVID is we help Main Street businesses, and our tagline is where Madison Avenue meets Main Street, and what that means is Madison Avenue quality. Behind you I see David Ogilvy and Claude Hopkins, like bringing that level of marketing, strategic communications, and advertising to regular businesses, insurance agencies, property development companies, gyms, restaurants, all these Main Street businesses, like guys like us, and making sure that they're getting, and gals like that, making sure that people that take that leap into business get really good marketing advice. So that's the direction.
And they can't hire Madison, right?
And they can't. Well, and Madison stayed out of it. They go after the big businesses. And obviously I was thinking about this. It would be great if I could get, one client that could hit the number I want to hit. But I'm probably not going to get that. So my target is middle market.
Yeah. And we use the same, when we look at it, we're custom saddle makers, right?
Yeah.
We're not competing against C.B. Richard Ellis or Jones Lang.
Right. We know our lane.
We know our lane. And they can't come down and we can go up, right? So it gives you, that enterprise model where Hertz was the biggest for 1,000 years. Enterprise did it, one office at a time in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and now they're the largest by $15 billion, right? Hertz couldn't compete at that point. But yeah, John, that's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, Brendan,
thank you so much.
Great hearing your story. And, these are the types of stories we want to keep bringing to regular people who have made a difference. They make a difference in the community. They serve on a lot of nonprofit boards like Brendan, like myself. And there's a unique story behind how they got started. And we look forward to sharing more of those with you. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Main Street Live.